That's right, and we're back. We're live on Chicano Tube. It's the Wednesday night show. Appreciate everyone that's already tapped in. Gracias for showing love in the comment section, man. If it wasn't for you guys, te digo, I'd be talking to a pinche pared by myself. Gracias all the day oneers, man. Everyone inside the members only. A couple announcements. We'll go through a couple announcements tonight, and then we'll get straight into it. Running that series we're calling Brown Issues. Órale. Brown Issues, episode number 2. Gracias to everyone that tuned in to episode number 1. It was something since Cesar Chavez, you know, the whole scandalo that came out with Cesar Chavez. I said, you know what, man? If I got a lane on this pinchy YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, we're also live on. We'll have this live up on IG too as well for people that do IG, you know. They listen throughout the day. Ever since the Cesar Chavez scandalo, I said, you know what? We got to run something for the people. And it's going to be called Brown Issues. We're not going to play. We're going to go ahead and just dive into everything. People try to avoid these conversations. We don't duck nada. Imagínate un pinche chicano tener miedo de algo, de hablar de algo. But before we do that, do me a favor if you can. This is YouTube and Twitch and all Facebook and Instagram. It's not for feria. Gracias a Dios, Dios me cuida. So none of this is for feria. None of this is for money. None of this is for profit. Absolutely zero. This is for the people. It's by the people. And it's powered for the people, right? By the people. So if you can, all you got to do is, hey, hit the pinchy like button. You can do all that. You can do the thanks. You could also share the broadcast. If you don't mind hitting the share, it's either an arrow or something like that. The main objective here is just to get these hard conversations that people try to avoid, right? Out there. That way people will know, hey, Chicano Tube deals with these conversations head on, cabrones. You know what I mean? I don't try to pump anything down your pinche garganta. Ultimately, it's up to you. But what the raza needs is a 2026 representation of Chicanismo, the way we roll, the way we should roll nowadays. We can't roll like we rolled in the 50s, or else all of us will be pinchy locked up. You know what I mean? We can't roll like the way we did in the 60s and 70s. And some people say the Chicano movement has fizzled away. And I say Chale Street, it hasn't gone anywhere, but it remains in our consciousness. And it remains in the corazón, okay? And it remains in this pinchy brown blood. And just like the banner says right there, brown is beautiful. So we're going to keep it pushing if you can. Just hit the share, spread the word. We're about 53,000 across all platforms, 50,000 plus for sure on all platforms. And it's all because of you guys, so gracias. Before I do anything, though, let's go ahead and light up the incense. We'll light up the incense for the ancestors. You know how we do it, cabrones. Right here next to the Eagle Warrior. Right next to the Eagle Warrior, so calmado. And man, we already got the first phone call of the night. It's already going down.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Caller, you are live on Chicano Tube. What you got to say?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing
I'm
good.
just saying, you know, like, in our community, going through a lot, you know what I mean? Going through a lot with the ICE thing. We got a lot of things going on in the community, being divided. Our communities, you know, with the job market, it's tough out there for our people, you know? Trying to make ends meet. What do you think?
Yeah, the ICE thing, it comes and goes. Obviously, you see it on the internet. It'll catch a fire for a week or two. It hit like a little, benchmark, and then it kind of fizzles away. I really don't think California's on fire and a la madre, vale madre, and all this other shit. But I do know what you're talking about. Most people that are getting wrangled up, have no criminal record. It's not that I agree with it. I'm just here to talk about it, and let's just face the reality. I mean, what can we do, right? There's modern-day activists that are putting their boots on the ground, and I commend those people. Those are the people that are going to city hall meetings, really trying to make a change for the people here, we're going to give this platform over to the raza, man. So whatever you got to say, put it out there to the gente.
Yeah, man, it just sucks. I just feel like the brown issues is not just here in the United States. It's also in Mexico and all Latin America. I feel our gente, the browns, we always go through shit no matter where we're at, whether if it's in the United States or if it's in Mexico, Central America, South America. Anytime, wherever our raza is at, we always go through discrimination. We have to fight for our lives. We always have to defend ourselves, no matter where we're at in the world. I feel like we're an easy target for people to manipulate, use, and at the end of the day, we're always a target because of just, the land rights and stuff, like us trying to fight for our lives and for our land. We become the target. You know what I mean? We are the people, you know what I mean? That we are the targets. And this is why we're always, put in the bad lights. We're always, always in some kind of battle, you know what I mean? And this is, imagine, dude, the stuff that's on TV, that's just like scratching the surface. We've been going through this for a long time, ever since colonization, right? So that's why our gente, man, we're very resilient, bro, to still be around, being incognito, being, just having to go, survive,
Simon, we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to go actually give a whole timeline because we're going to talk about today's episode is about stolen land. And then once we lay out every case, was California stolen? Was the Treaty of Guadalupe in the Southwest stolen? Or was it stolen from the natives that were here for thousands of years? We're going to go through all of that. Ultimately, that pues, Indigenous people, we have it pumping through our blood. And chime in, man. Chime in. I'm barely starting the episode, but I appreciate the call, cabrón. Órale. Cuídate mucho.
Whatever I can do to help. We got to help each other, man. Who else is going to help us, right?
Hey, we're all we got, cabrón.
Okay.
Simón, cuídate. Talk soon. Bye. Órale. We'll still just starting off the episode real quick before we get into a lot of things, man. I'm gonna put this up right here for the people. Let me see. Is that? Oh no. Wait a second. I gotta put it in this one, cabrón. My bad. All right. Man, the calls are already coming in hot already. I get it, man. I do get it. Gente, in Salinas, I want to go ahead and put this up. This is going to be the party to attend right here. It's going to be the first annual gala, Teen Moms. This is hosted by the strong Chicana, Carol Adeza. Of course, you know who Carol is. I introduced her on Cesar Chavez Day, 331. She's hosting this first gala right here. It's dressed to impress. Me and the beautiful, smoking, sexy, hot wife will be there. If you want tickets to this event, go on Instagram and reach out to Teen Moms Inc. Is on Instagram. Also, Carol Edeza, Edeza. And go ahead and shoot her a follow also as well. This is what's going to happen right here. And real quick, the calls are already coming in hot. Gente, just give me a second. Déjame calentar la cosa because we're going to get into this. I promise you we're going to deep dive into this. And the first caller is already talking about the mistreatment of the raza. Well, I think there's going to be an underlying tone throughout this whole episode because these are brown issues. These aren't white issues. These aren't black issues. These aren't red issues, okay? So these are things that are going to hit us close to home. But before that, a couple other announcements. Mexican Independence Day, if you want to participate in that, we already got about maybe 4 or 5 people that want to participate. That means people that want to get in the ring, throw chingazos. We're going to do it on Mexican Independence Day, the day Miguel Hidalgo went right there in the city of Dolores y empezó a gritar, and they were tired of España, New Spain at that time. And, of course, anyone that's Mexican on that day feels that pinche fervor and that pride for being Mexicano. So if you're a content creator and you want to participate in the show, last year's show era de aquellas, man. Snowman was in the house. Shout out to Snowman from the Inland Empire. Mile High Hustle came all the way from Denver, Colorado. That's like 900 miles, I think he said. Shout out to him. And Cholo Trucker, who I call the baddest Chicano on YouTube. The baddest Chicano, Cholo Trucker, mi hermano, mi carnal. He's was also participated last year. We got Mark from DAZN, who is going to be commentating. He's going to be leading the commentary team. Mark from Texas. He called in last week on Brown Issues, episode 1, Chicano History. And so if you guys want to participate in that, that means you want to throw chingazos, or maybe you just want to come. We're going to be in Southern California, particularly in Upland, California, in the 909. Go ahead and get a hold of me, Chicano Tube, on all platforms. Gracias to everyone that tuned in for the Cesar Chavez episode as well. The Cesar Chavez episode, gente, is not going to be... The Cesar Chavez, he basically is the Raza's MLK, right? And I know I had a great call last week and was like, oh, man, we shouldn't be, putting people on pedestals or idolizing people. No, it's not about that. It's just about, I got really upset at the Raza because the Raza's quick to just erase all the pinchy history. And I don't know
and
why.
Markets Apprentice super chatted $1.99. Today is Jackie Robinson Day. Is he next?
Damn,
Thinking
man.
face.
Well, it was right on time, Markets Apprentice. Man, shout out to you. Gracias for the super chat, cabron. Talking about Cesar Chavez and his cancellation. I was mad at the Raza because it seems like we'll stick up for other razas before we'll stick up for our own. And that's probably just the tribalism that's flowing through our blood, but it shouldn't be that way. So Cesar Chavez is always going to be, is never going to go away for us, at least here on Chicano Tube. We'll talk about that as many times as we need to because he was an absolute game changer, right? So anyways, okay, let's talk about this, man. Let's go ahead and talk about Chicano Brown Issues. Episode number 2, man. Is this land stolen? All right. Let's get into it. Let's deep dive deep into this, right? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually just remember right now. Let me pull up a definition. Here it is. Okay. Give me a second. Share screen. All right. So let's start it off like this, okay? Let's start it off like this because when people say stolen land, let's go ahead and start off with the definition of stolen, okay? Let's follow me here. We're going to lay some groundwork. After we lay out the definition of stolen, okay, objectively, let's go ahead and talk about California. Let's go ahead and talk about the Southwest. And let's go ahead and get to what most people refer to when they say stolen land, which is the entire United States. That started off as a little strip, right? And when the Brits got here, they basically said, hey, don't go west of this river. We're just going to stay right here. And it was the initial pinchy 13 colonies, right? Well, that didn't last long, right? Everyone went west. But before the Britons got here, we know this, before Christopher Columbus and the little canciones that we sang in school, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and all these things happened. There was people already on this land. So we're going to break it down from California, because I don't know what people refer to when they say this, stolen land. So we're just going to cover the whole damn shit, okay? Excuse my language, okay? We're just going to cover all of it, okay? But I say let's lay out some groundwork first, and let's go ahead and get this this definition down right there. And if you guys want to go ahead and type in the chat, there's a poll right here under me. Is this stolen land? This is the first time, I just got to keep it a buck with you. This is the first time I ran a poll on here. Trying to level up all the time here on this streaming thing. And so I don't know if you can hit that on your screen, the poll, to get the results, or you just have to, like it says, type 1 or 2 in the chat, and that's how it's going to register the poll numbers. I don't know. Someone hit a 1 or hit a 2. Maybe you could try it out for me, okay? Hit a 1 or hit a 2, and then we'll go from here. So stolen land, let's go ahead and get the definition of stolen. Aquí está, cabrón. It says stolen. Number 1, it has 2 definitions, right? It says to take, in parentheses, another person's property without permission or legal right and without intending to return it. Okay, that's one right there. Hence, at the bottom it says, thieves stole her bicycle. You took someone else's personal property without permission or legal right and without intending to return it. Or number two, it says the move somewhere quietly, all right? Or surreptitiously, okay? He stole down to the kitchen. I think it's good to go ahead and lay the groundwork down before we get into what we're going to be talking about. California stolen, because the internet is una pinche capirutada of things, right? People don't really break down exactly what they say. So I'm just going to cover all of this thing because really, let me move this off the screen. Ya, cálmate. Really, the way you perceive this, whether stolen land from Native Americans, California, maybe you're just a pinche like me or a Chicano from California, you're talking about California got stolen, or it's the whole damn Southwest. We're going to break this all down. That way it just covers everything, cabrones, okay? First thing, stolen land. Let's talk about, well, we don't have to break down California because California is included in the Southwest, right? Let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about mentality, okay? Mentality. So the way you approach this, the way you look at things is super important. It's super important. You got to be able to see through the right lenses. If not, you're going to judge things, maybe have presuppositions. Let me make sure I said that shit right? Presuppositions of what's not. Okay, of what's not. And so when people say the stolen land issue, it definitely is something we need to address here as brown people, right? So let's start off with the Southwest before we get into the Native, because I think the Native one is going to last a whole lot longer. The whole United States is going to last a whole lot longer than we just talk about the Southwest, right? So people say Aslan, okay, is stolen. If you don't know what Aslan is, Aslan basically refers to the entire Southwest, okay? Because there are myths, there are legends that the Mexicanos, the original tribes, let's just say the Mexica, went ahead and migrated over from the Southwest because they belonged in, they started off in northern territories and then ended up down there where obviously a prophecy came to pass and they settled in Mexico City, which is modern day the capital, right? So let's talk about if you mean when you say stolen land, and this is to everyone in general, if you mean when you say stolen land, if you're talking about the Southwest, how about that? We'll start there. And let me get some pinche agua también. Okay. So about 45 to 50% of territory, about 500,000, I want to say it was 500,000 square miles, 45, 50% of Mexico was lost. It was lost. It was signed over, I believe it was February 2nd of 1848. How was it signed over? Well, it was signed over under duress. What ended up happening? Well, long story short, Texas got annexed. 1846, the Mexican-American War kicked off. The United States won that war. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. I got to keep it a buck with you. They won that war because Mexico was battle already stricken. 11 years they were in the pinche guerra with New Spain, right? Not just Spain. France came over to Mexico. They got into a guerra with France because Mexico owed some money over to France, etc. Battle stricken. So one of the worst, and I mean the worst ideas that Mexico did was they wanted to go ahead and let immigration happen to Texas. Okay, that's what happened. So they told American settlers, which originally are European. Let's just keep it a buck, right? I think they probably would get offended. No se agüiten mis pinches güeros, right? If we were to refer, you know how they call Native Americans, Mexican Americans, okay, African Americans. But I never heard anyone say European Americans. I don't know if the güeros will get mad if we referred to them as European Americans, but they definitely are not the natives of the land. They all came here, and it's called immigration. So Mexico decided to let immigration happen in Texas first. And it was supposed to be an economic boost, okay? That means, hey, let's let them buy some land. They'll have to become Mexican citizens, learn Spanish, do this and that, whatever. But it's more for profit. It's an economic boost. So we'll let American settlers live in Texas. Well, that wasn't the best of ideas because really it just, next thing you know, tenían güeros all over the place with wagons and they're occupying, right? They're occupying. So that kicked off a pinchy war, right? Next thing you know, Santa Ana, which a lot of people blame the whole Mexico, the whole Southwest getting lost, the whole kit and caboodle getting taken away. A lot of people blame General Santa Ana. Matter of fact, I had that Mexican Velma. Shout out to mi amiga from Texas, that Mexican Velma. Subscribe over to her. Oh, man, she makes me laugh. Shout out to the Mexican Velma. Mexican Velma said on a podcast once upon a time, she said, well, if you want to blame anyone for losing that whole pinchy Southwest territory, blame General Santa Ana. This is a cabron who was 11 times the president of Mexico, raza. Shout out to B Queen, Death Row, Daniel Valencia. I appreciate you, cabron. It's that kid. J-Dog Raza, que huele contigo, güey. A lot of people blame General Santa Ana, right? There was a big battle of, well, first of all, this doesn't get talked about too much because, you know, it's U.S. history. They don't teach us everything in U.S. history, right? But Davy Crockett, John Bowie, and all these frontier men of the West, de la chingada, right? They got taken out. Santa Ana took them out at the Alamo. That was one battle that Mexico won because they said, wait a second, it's all bad. We shouldn't have made that decision. They tried to go run the güeros out of Texas, but that didn't work, right? They won 2 battles. I believe they won Alamo and another one called Gilead or Goliad, something like that, ¿verdad? But it was at this battle of San Jacinto, okay? This was a battle that General Sam Houston did a nice little military move on Mexico. Los agarró, cabrones. He got them. And he basically got Texas. They got Santa Ana. And one of the most humiliating moments, this is what they said. One of the most humiliating moments in Mexican history is when the 11-time president and / general, which you got to give him some respect, he was out there fighting. He's not a pinchy pencil pusher behind a desk. He's not going to fight. General Santa Ana was out there on the front line. He even had his leg blown off. At one point, they blew his leg off. They shot his leg off because, you know, the pinchy generals back then tenían huevos. You know, they're going to ride in front of their cavalry and rally the troops. And the best way to do it, set the example. Montate el pinchy caballo, show the people, right? What was funny about them shooting his leg off, I mean, shooting his leg off is not funny. But he actually did like a military ceremony for his pinche pata. I mean, it's funny. He did a military ceremony for his pinche pata. Like they were all right. Like it was a funeral for his. Anyways, that's a funny story to me. But when General Sam Houston got him, he basically said, you're signing over Texas, cabron. It just is what it is. And then later on, we're going to talk about manifest destiny, because that's something that we do have to also cover and include. We want to touch all aspects of this whole stolen land topic. Right now, we're talking about the Southwest. I'm starting with Texas, but we're going to go all the way to California, right? And then I'll turn over to the comments, see what the people say. You guys can call in. The phone number is right there at the bottom, right? And then in the end, we'll wrap it up with maybe just Q&A, right? We'll go over brown issues, Q&A. So that's how Texas got lost. It was a huge humiliation. Santa Ana, he had to go back to Mexico. He was exiled like 2 times, el cabrón. They would kick him out of the country because they were embarrassed of the humiliating moments, and then they would let him back in. It is what it is, right? So the Mexican-American War kicked off right there. Here we go. It's going down, right? It's a 2-year war, right? And in history in the United States, they don't tell us everything, right? But they do highlight the heroes, which are, the U.S. generals, the frontiersmen, right? I still remember their names, even though I was a little chavalito being taught these things. Okay, you had General Scott and General Kearney, General Taylor, General Fremont, right? Fremont and Kearney were the ones that took California, okay? So again, Mexico is putting up these last stands, right? Let's go over to California, and then we'll make our way down to the Southwest, and then I'll turn it over to the people, and I want to ask you guys, Q&A you guys, if the stolen land thing you're talking about is the Southwest, we'll wrap that up, and then we'll start off now with the Native Americans that were here in the U.S., and then, we'll cover both of them, right? Do me a favor, hit that pinchy like. California, they did a last stand. It was like in San Gabriel or San Fernando. It was one of those two, either San Gabriel or San Fernando, right? Mexico is still there, but it's war-torn. It's battered. California back then was called Alta California. Still territory of Mexico, but it was at the damn top, right? Mexico had a lot of issues, right? More in central Mexico, but it's still Mexican territory, right? These generals, when they saw Texas get taken, they went straight toward California, man. They said, you know what? We want California as well. We're going to make this, like the song says, from sea to shining sea, right? So they ended up making the Mexican-American War. The last stand was somewhere in San Fernando, somewhere in San Gabriel, gente. It was over there. It was a vicious, vicious battle. In the end, ultimately, the U.S. generals proved to be more militarily inclined, more militarily intelligent, and they ended up winning, right? Now, the United States hadn't come off of war-torn years back then. They were basically just trying to get their numbers up. There wasn't hundreds of thousands of troops. We're talking about a few thousand troops. Every time there was a group of troops and a battle, we're only talking about 1,500 troops, 2,000, 3,000 troops. We weren't talking about 50,000, 100,000. The numbers are crazy now, but it wasn't like that back then, right? For a lot of reasons. Anyways, that last battle at San Gabriel and San Fernando, California, got lost, okay? So there was no other way for Mexico to just try to get out of this. I mean, they couldn't conquer. They were pretty much conquered. They weren't going to be able to overtake the land again. So again, this is another humiliation for General Santa Anna. Another humiliation. What happened? What happened? He had to sign over the territories, right? And there was a price that was paid. I think it was about $15 million, right? Which brings me to another point, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. When people say the stolen land thing, if we're talking about the natives, when people say the land didn't belong to the natives of the land, then I tend to say, well, then how come money was offered in a transaction for the land? if money was offered in a transaction for the land, that's kind of a tangible, physical evidence that it wasn't yours in the first place. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we're going to talk about the natives in a little bit. We're still talking about the Southwest. If people are talking about stolen land, the Southwest got stolen. I just gave you the overview of a pinche guerra that Mexico lost. And then here came the point of there was money involved, right? There was money involved. Now, the gacho thing about it was in the treaty, which there's actually an article in the Constitution. This is the United States Constitution. I don't know if it's Article 12, Article 14. I totally do not know it. I'm not some kind of constitutional pinche doctor, okay, that I know all the Constitution. But someone can fact check me. There is somewhere in the Constitution that says treaties are to be upheld by the highest court in the land, which is the Supreme Court. So in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, they basically came to an agreement that the 100,000+ Mexicans who just had the border cross them. One day, it's their land. The next day, they're tenants of the land, right? This is where the saying, we didn't cross the border crossed us, comes into play, right? So in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the Mexicans that stayed on their land, but all of a sudden it became U.S. territory. I'm talking about like 45, 50% of Mexico. That was a whole Southwest, right? Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, parts of Colorado. Huge territory, right? In the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the Mexicans that all of a sudden became Americans, the treaty said that they are to remain the property owners of their land. That's part of the treaty. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Go ahead and look it up. Fact check me all you want. We're in the fact check generation, ¿verdad? Don't just believe me. Don't just believe me. Look it up for yourself, cabrones. So what ended up happening, and we're talking about the Southwest, stolen land, Aztlán. We're talking about, was Aztlán stolen, right? We'll get to the conclusion in about maybe 5-10 minutes, ¿verdad? Unless we just go off of it, right? Stolen land is the left's weak narrative to combat what's happening with immigration at the moment. Órale. I do want to go into some of the comments. Okay, I see some of you guys are hitting buttons. Okay, that's what you got to do. You got to hit a button. If you want to vote in this poll right here, I think, gracias, David Ramirez. I appreciate you, cabron. So you got to hit a comment in order to vote for this poll. And we are going to get to the comments, Arnie. We're going to get to the comments, cabron. I promise you, cabron. I'm trying to deep dive into this shit. Like, let's just break this all the way down. That way, for once and for all, when you see a sign and someone says stolen land, at least you'll know all the facts and you come to your own conclusion, right? Like I have, and I'll tell you mine in the end. And then we got to go over to the Native Americans because that's probably going to take more time than the Southwest, right? Okay, so they were promised 100,000+ Mexicans at the border crossed them. Paz. They're landlords one day, they're tenants the next day. They were promised to keep that land. But the United States did a slick one. Very, very slick one, right? What did the United States do? They basically said it's all good, shake hands, right? Again, the treaty was signed under duress. The United States, they went all the way to pinche Tenochtitlan, cabrones. They went to Tenochtitlan. They went to Mexico City, modern day. They went there. They stormed the port of Veracruz. At one point, the United States had even considered, fuck it. Should we just take all of Mexico? Excuse my language. Should we just take all of Mexico? Fuck it. We're already at the capital. Let's do it. And the leaders of the United States were like, I don't know. More of them lean no. And I'll tell you why. This is just an absolute fact. I'm putting facts out there. If you think I'm coming with some kind of angle, I'm not coming with no angle. I'm giving you everything que está aquí in this pinche noggin, and I'm leaving it up to the people to decide. But this is an issue that we got to deal with, and this is brown issues, right? They basically said that culture that they got going down there in Mexico, this is what the gabachos said, the politicians, right? That culture that they got going on over there, we don't want that culture. We don't want to be raveled, entangled with that culture. I don't know if that meant let's just stick with the gabachos. You know, we're just gabachos and let's just stay with the gabachos. But you can interpret that how you want. So they basically got Santa Anna to sign everything over. And when that happened, the people in all the Southwest whose land was promised to stay in their families, the land that some of them had buried their parents, buried their grandparents. I'm not trying to give you some kind of sad story. I'm just speaking nothing but pinchy facts over here, right? The land that was theirs, you know what the United States did? They said, you know what? After they shook hands and we got the territory, manifest destiny, this shit is ours, only the strong survive, a la chingada. The United States said, we're not going to honor that treaty. Or at least that part of the treaty. There's in the 19th century, there was over 300 treaties that were signed. All of this is public record. There was land grants to the natives. There was land grants given to those Mexicans who in one night they became Americans, right? A lot of people call the natives First Americans. They call them First Nations. I don't want to get ahead, but we're going to go over that because some people refer to stolen land, Aslan, or stolen land, the whole pinche United States. So I just want to cover everything tonight, man. And don't forget to cast your vote inside the comment section, man. You guys hit a 1. If yes, this land is stolen, hit a 2. Nah, chale, only the strong survive. All right. So the treaty happened. They ended up doing a dirty move. And, you know, it was not honorable, right? You're not holding up your word because the U.S. Constitution says these treaties, you know, supersede. It's like they're coming from the highest court in the land, should be honoring these treaties. So there was a cabron in New Mexico. His last name was Tijerina, right? Reyes Lopez Tijerina. This guy, he was actually a preacher, right? He was a preacher. He went down to Mexico. He studied land grants and treaties because he said that he just felt it burned inside of him to try to help the people get their land back because he saw that they were just getting driven out. All of a sudden, people are putting up fences. People are tripping like, what the hell? Why is there a fence? All of a sudden, people are putting up barbed wire. And the gente of the land are like, what the hell is this pinchy barbed wire right here? You know what I mean? So lands are getting divided left and right. So this cabrón, Tijerina, he started something called La Alianza de Mercedes, right? And basically, he came out on the news, right? This is during the 60s, and he became a big part of the Chicano movement with Dr. King, of course, Cesar Chavez and Jorge Gonzalez, and all these people. He became an intricate figure in the Chicano movement also as well because of his role, which was he was from northern New Mexico, and he said, wait a second, these families have grants, which you can call titles, which you can call deeds. It's all the same. Well, I mean, not identically the same. I'm sure legal definitions are going to maybe put a document on top of one, or one supersedes the other, etc. But you know what I mean, especially my real estate people that do real estate. Titles, grants, deeds means possession of the property, right? So he said, wait a second, no, you're on our land, this cabron right here, and he got 20,000 people behind him. This was a dude, he was no joke, right? Out of northern New Mexico. He started a revolt, and he cited the articles of the Constitution, saying the United States Supreme Court upholds that treaties are to be recognized as the law of the land. This is from the city government, state government, to the highest court, the Supreme Court. You can't get any higher. He was arguing this thing, right? Well, they ended up throwing him in prison, right? It was all bad. They threw him in prison for 1 or 2 years. He came out and still continued inside the Chicano movement. But part of his condition for an early release was to break up that little alianza that he had going on, right? This is this cabron Tijerina. And he did, because, well, he wants to get out, cabrones. You know, he doesn't want to be inside, so he wants to be out. So he basically, that kind of fizzled away. And that was probably one of the last resistance that happened in the Southwest, right? It was this cabron called Tijerina. In conclusion, because I really want to get into the comments right now, and I want to pivot right now, because I believe not everybody, but most people refer to is this stolen land about the whole United States and the natives that were here. That's what I think most people talk about. I don't think most people are referring to Aztlán, which is the Southwest, which became very popular in Chicano art in the 60s. But maybe some people are saying that the United States, when they say stolen land, they're referring to that the United States stole the land from Mexico. That's what we're talking about right now. So let's go ahead and get into some kind of conclusion and close this out, because I really kind of want to pivot, and I want to get into, and I want to open up the lines and get your opinion and get into the natives and this whole thing. And then in the end, let's talk about how much does this really impact us? How much does this really move the needle? How much does this really affect us now that we're in 2026? You know, and we've evolved in our thinking. You know, we're not in the Civil War of Mexico anymore. We're definitely not. We're not in the native days. You're not walking around with pinche huaraches on the floor, de tierra, la chingada, you know, and skinning your food, eating once a week with your tribe and dancing for rain, a la chingada, and you know what I mean. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up. If you mean this is stolen land, and I'm going to read some comments right now, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. Well, the phone lines are already open. If you mean that Mexico got their land stolen by the United States, I am going to respectfully disagree. The reason I'm going to disagree is because obviously, one, there was a war, right? And when there's a war, there's pinche conquest. And if there's conquest, well, the last man standing gana. And not just that there was a war. I disagree if you say Aztlán with Mexico, America, United States stole the land from Mexico. I'm going to disagree because there was a war that was lost, one. Two, I'm going to say there was money involved in a transaction. And so that kind of fucking cements that there was a transaction. for Mexico succeeding 50% of their territory. But I don't know what the people say. I want to go ahead and see exactly what the people say. Right now, we have 100% of the poll that says, is this land stolen? Again, right now, we're just talking about the Southwest. If you're talking about the Güeros, Americanos, whatever you want to say, stole it from Mexico, I want to see what the people say right here. 100% said the Southwest. Daniel Valencia says this. He says, well, when Mexico was created in 1824, that might be 1821, way. It might, but don't quote me on there. Ni te estoy aventando pedrada, way. It might be 1821, but let's go ahead and say, did away with indigenous territories and open up individual land ownership to buyers to take indigenous territories that New Spain in the late 1970s acknowledged. Yes. So a lot of people avoid this history. Daniel Valencia, I'm glad you said that, cabron. A lot of people avoid this history. Who did Mexico take Texas from? Oh, man, here we go. We're going to open up a whole can of worms now. I'm going to ask the people again. Because people, Texas belonged to Mexico. Okay, I get it. When you're talking about territories. But before Spain came, there were no Mexicans, if you understand what I'm talking about. Mestizos, mezclados, right? So who was in Texas? The people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear this. Here, I can already see people's panties getting in a bunch. Who was in Texas before the Mexicans considered it their territory? It was the natives. So people don't want to hear this, but ultimately Mexico took Texas from the natives. That's a fact. That's a fact. Daniel Valencia says, here we go. Spanish land grants were done by having a Spanish ancestor. Then when Mexico created those grants, they were upheld, but not for indigenous tribes since their land was communal, not individually owned. Yes. So it's funny because they say, some people, they say this, right? My land got given to me from the King of Spain, right? And technically that's not true. Technically, I mean, indirectly, yes, indirectly, but it really comes down to like the viceroys, right? And then it's like there's governors, and it's kind of like a chain of command, right? And you're right. Spain issued land grants. Mexico issued land grants. The ultimate one was in the Treaty of Guadalupe that said people in the Southwest could keep their land. But right after the Treaty of Guadalupe, right? All of a sudden, what happened less than 6 months after the Treaty of Guadalupe? You know what happened? It was called the Gold Rush. In the Sacramento area, in California, cabrones, all of a sudden, they found gold. And it was right after. You know how much the gold rush contributed over to the economy? This is a rough number that some economists have actually put out, okay? Remember, they got $15 million for that territory. 50%, some people say 45, some people say 55%. I don't know. Let's just put it in the middle, 50% of Mexico, right? The whole Southwest. They say, economists say, about less than 6 months after when gold got discovered in the Sacramento area, hence, here came the pinchy 49ers, right? Gold miners and all of that good stuff. They say it turned into at least $50 million by the end of that year. And that was just the end of the first year of the gold rush. So immediately the $15 million just in California, the return more than tripled, almost quadrupled. They got their return back, right? That was gacho. Because imagine Mexico could have held on to California a little bit more. Imagine if Mexico could have held on just a little bit more to California, how much would that have stimulated the Mexican economy? Man, that was right on the brink. But things happen for a reason, I believe. Let's go back into the comments, cabrones. All right. Daniel Valencia says, now the battleground is in the highest courts of the country and the world court. That's definitely how you have to approach things nowadays. We don't roll like the old school days nowadays. What we should be doing is putting ourselves in positions where we can make these pinchy changes nowadays and take it to the court, like you said. Why not? We're going to talk about the natives. The natives even did that. The Cherokee. I don't want to get ahead. But we're going to talk about the Cherokee actually took the U.S. settlers to court and won and still got their shit taken. That's gacho. I don't want to get ahead though, but I will talk about that right now. The war was not fair from the beginning. I know what you mean, cabron. It wasn't fair from the beginning because... Hold on.
At Thessalinosog super chatted $5. Even the Aztecs invaded Mexico. We are descendants of immigrants, including from Spain. Mexico is not stolen land. It's conquered land up for grabs.
That's kind of that's what I was leaning toward as far as my conclusion, carnal. So, hey, gracias for the super chat, man. The Salinas OG, shout out to him. Shout out to you. I appreciate you. It's one of my day oneers. Shout out to the Salinas OG. Of course, he's right here from the 831. We got a lot of rich history here. That's what we're going to be talking about, brown issues. Look at the history we got, right? Matter of fact, the last conversation that Cesar Chavez had with Dolores Huerta, this is what she said. Look up the last conversation that Dolores Huerta had. There was an interview of her where they asked her that question. He was in Yuma facing some lawsuits for the United Farm Workers, right? Because, of course, when you get to a certain level, they want to sue your ass off, right? And you know what he says, Cesar Chavez? He goes, you know what? I'm going back to Salinas, man. I'm going to go over there and get some testimonies and some paperwork together, and then I'm going to come back to Yuma. And then Cesar Chavez passed away that night. That just shows how much history we got right here, Salinas OG, when they try to come after one of our pinche Chicano pioneers, right? But we're talking about stolen land, right? And I agree with what you said. I'll put your comment back up, carnal. The Salinas OG says, even the Aztecs invaded Mexico. We are descendants of immigrants, including from Spain. Mexico is not stolen land. It's conquered land up for grabs. I mean, name me a country. Maybe somebody, everyone has Chat GPT now, so you can just talk into your pinchy thing, and then you can comment below. I want you to name me a country that wasn't conquered, that didn't have its original inhabitants at some point or another, either before the Crusades, during the Crusades, which are the medieval times, after or even before or after colonization. After colonization, pretty much everything has settled, right? And then we're going to talk about the natives, because that's probably going to take the last hour. We're probably going to talk about the Native Americans. Natives, let's call them natives, but everything's Americans. I mean, if we're just going to be fair and put an American behind everyone, then there's Native Americans, Mexican Americans, African Americans. And I mean, just to be fair, we might as well say European Americans, because Europeans are not the natives of the land, but they were the pinchy strongest, just don't get mad, had the baddest generals. That's why they won the Mexican-American War. But again, someone said, hey, that war was not fair from the beginning. Yeah, you're right. War battered Mexico 11 years. Not only did they fight Spain, they had to fight France. Was already beat up. So United States came in there with their pinchy generals and did what they did, man. Did what they did. Talk about the Comanche, and we're going to get to that, cabron, because a lot of people don't know that the Comanche actually overtook the Apache and overtook a lot of their lands. Again, before settlers came, or whatever you want to call it, you know, güeros, Americanos, Britons, English settlers and stuff like that. Yeah, there was already that conquering going on, right? Even between the tribes, right? We're going to get to that. I think we're going to spend most of our time with that, man. Here we go. J-Dog Raza says, I can't believe everyone is so whitewashed on here. Damn it. Yeah, it's conquered, but you can't pick and choose what parts of the Constitution you enforce. J-Dog, I would like for you to break that down, cabron. 831-240-4328. Or I'm going to move on to the natives right now, but I do want to give my conclusion before we move on. All right. Break that down a little bit more, because whitewashed, I'm not exactly certain what you mean by whitewash. Do you mean that we like fucking barbecues and baseball steaks and and football games, or what kind of lens do you mean when you say whitewashed? Or I get it. There's a popular opinion, right? It's you have to agree with the masses online. I'm not talking about offline, online. Where online, it's the majority of brown influencers, right? They might group up and lean toward backing up one ideology and one philosophy, which is the land stolen, chinga los güeros, or whatever, right? Something like that. Is that what you're talking about? That if we don't think that way, we're whitewashed? I don't know. Let me know, man. I'm a Chicano from East Salinas, 93905, born and raised, parents of farm workers. I grew up in the fields. I was a field baby. I didn't go no pinche colegio. No one lavó mi coco. So the way I see things, I grew up in the hood. I grew up poor with roaches crawling on the walls. I fucking had roaches crawling on top of me while I was sleeping. And, the hood and all that. So whitewash, I don't think I am. But I don't have pinche any kind of animosity con los güeros. Is maybe that's what you're saying? Like we should all believe stolen land. Oh, que chingalo what? I don't think that, bro. I don't think that. I don't roll that way. But again, I'm just speaking it straight what it is, right? All right, let's wrap this up. Because I think most people are talking about stolen land. They're talking about the whole United States. And that's what we're going to spend more time on. In conclusion, gente, the Southwest was lost to a pinchy war, I think. Was there some dirty moves done? Absolutely. Because just like I had mentioned in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the Mexicanos that became, it was over 100,000 that became Americans overnight, they were promised to keep their property, and that didn't happen. They didn't keep their property. All of a sudden, the U.S. reneged and said, well, we're not going to honor that because that's a Mexico thing. And here in the United States, especially in the Supreme Court or the courts of the land, this is how we're going to roll, right? Am I saying that's right? No, I'm saying that is fucked up. It really is. It's fucked up. Imagine getting your property taken. People are coming on your land, which we're going to talk about the natives, because the natives, I think, had it a whole lot worse than the Mexicans. But I think Mexico lost that fucking land, bro. I mean, with all due respect, excuse me that I'm cursing. I think Mexico lost that land. Was it fair from the beginning? Like one of the persons that commented, no, it probably wasn't fair from the beginning, man. But it was what it was, right? Now, let's say the whole Southwest would have stayed Mexico, right? The whole thing would have been Mexico, right? Then what about the economy? Because Mexico doesn't really run the best centralized government. So, I mean, California would have looked beautiful, right? Like California would have looked like Rosarito. Las playas de Rosarito, Tecate, Ensenada. California would have looked beautiful, man. I mean, the last time me and the beautiful, smoking, sexy, hot wife went down there, we took the family down there. I mean, these coastline castles that look like haciendas coming off the ocean. I'm like, damn, I went to one called, it starts with the E. Encanto. I just remember, I think it's called Encanto. Look it up, Playas de Rosarito, Encanto. Look at the images on Google. We're right there. We stayed right there. It looks like a castle. You're literally eating off the ocean. But my point is this. If it would have stayed Mexico, they would have been subject to the Mexican economy. Then people probably just would have went east to live in the United States where it was a better economy. Because who the hell wants to live in poverty? I mean, if I could just keep it a buck. I'm just trying to keep it a buck with you guys, right? And they would have visited California, which would have been Mexico, and spent their tourist dollars over there. But since it's poor or, less than middle class, no one would have wanted to live in California because, well, the government wasn't running things right, and maybe it would have stayed in poverty. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they would have found gold, and Mexico, since the gold would have came from California, would have made California a better place. Or they could have got the gold, and the money-hungry politicians could have just said, that's coming to Mexico, California stays Alta California, and it's not what it is today. It wouldn't have been what it is today, I guess is my opinion, all right? All right, now let's pivot. Let's keep it moving. I do want to read a couple more of the comments. J-Dog Raza says, the Treaty of Guadalupe allowed granted Mexican land rights, but lost land rights. Orale, man, you ain't lying about that. Read the comments above about immigration policy now. That's all I meant. Okay, you want to go up? Let me see. Immigration policy now. Ay, cabrón. I think I'm going to go too far up, man. What are, Damian Lepes in the casa says, what are Spanish people? Okay. What are Spanish people? Well, back in the day, like in the 50s and 60s, was gachos, they used to put these little pinche cachuchas on them, and they would put Spanish. They would punish Spanish-speaking kids, Mexican kids, and they would put these hats on them, and they would put Spanish on there. And the teachers would tell them, these are true stories, man. The teachers would tell them, again, we don't live in those times. I'm not saying that's happening right now. Imagine that shit. They'll sue the shit out of that school and that teacher and, get a nice little chunk of change if that happened today. But we're just citing history and facts, right? The teacher would tell the child, until you learn English, you got to leave this hat on you. And then a lot of the güeros would tell Mexicans, are you Spanish? You're Spanish, huh? But, I mean, the definition of Spanish is from Spain. That's, to me, it's the definition of Spanish, right? And it's definitely not a native language of Mexico because, well, the natives that were there before Spain came spoke a whole nother language, right? So what are Spanish people? That's subject to interpretation, cabron. If you want to call and break that down a little bit more, the phone number's at the bottom, cabron, right? Israel versus Iran, by the way, I don't want to open that one up right now. I'm trying to pivot over to the Native Americans. Spanish people are folks who speak Spanish but think they are white. What the hell is that? What the hell? All right, let me read that one more time, cabron. Yapu. Spanish people are folks who speak Spanish but think they are white. Not too sure about that way.
To accept, press 1.
Caller, you're live on Chicano Tube. What you got to say?
Yeah, but I'm just hearing about the history lesson, right? About Spanish and things like that. Like, it's good we talk about a lot of times we forget or we don't know. Like, we don't talk about it when, you're growing up about, the history. That's why a lot of us grew up pretty much naive to it, right? Like, what really happened, like the French and Indian War. Remember that? They talk about that? Remember the French and Indian War? Like, talking about that, like that's a big thing for our cultura because I think I have a big thing about like the Revolutionary War. It was part of that, you know. So knowing that, it touches in with our roots, who we are, where we come from, because a lot of us are mixed, right? In our Mexican culture, right? We're mestizos, right? But a lot of us, we have different mix. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, you know, sometimes some people see it as important, others don't, but a lot of times that's important, so where you come from, it's good to know that. You know, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, maybe it can mess up someone's, mentality, right?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people say, oh, that's being woke. That's not good. You know, that gets you, that causes problems, which, yeah, it can. I understand that, the division part of it, you know. It can divide people, right? But at the end of the day, dude, it is what it is, bro. Like, just because you ain't güero or you ain't white, you do get treated different, bro. People don't respect you as much, I feel. What do you think? You think that's a factor? Or it just depends on your character, how you are, how you carry yourself? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack there. As far as how people see us and perceive us, it's not as bad as it used to be. I'll tell you that, right? Because back in the day, like in Texas, pinche Texas Rangers estaban colgando Mexicanos, colgando Chicanos, and I said that California Chicanos think they had it bad, not as bad as Texas. Texas Rangers estaban colgando Mexicanos y Chicanos, but here's 60 years later, so. I'm a living testimony de lo que what I've came out of from the mud. No one's held me back. The only one that's ever held me back is myself. But I get it that does exist because I've been to court where a pinche güero, who R's a girl, gets probation, and a Mexicano or a black or someone else, he gets caught with a little pistola, and we get 10, 16 years. So I do believe the system is still broken. To what extent, I don't know. I wanted to ask you about the Native and French War. Is that the war that you're talking about on U.S. soil, or did that happen down in Mexico?
I think in both, bro, because at the end of the day, this was Mexico, right? California, Texas, and all that was Mexico, no?
So
if those wars going on.
If that happened in the United States and you had said, oh, that's, our cultura, I mean, really, a lot of us that come from Mexico come from the tribes of Mexico. So we probably don't have too much bloodline of the tribes that were in the United States, if that makes sense. ¿Verdad? Or no?
Well, honestly, I think a lot of the tribes in Mexico, they were in the United States. But then after the wars, they got pushed down like a funnel, pushed down to Mexico. And then they set up the border. So much of those tribes, they were in the central part of the United States, but then they moved west. And as they moved west, they moved down southwest to Mexico because we were being pushed west from the East Coast to the west. All the tribes on the East Coast got wiped out when the, Europeans came with the slaves. In my opinion, my theory is the European and the slaves, they both wiped out the Indios, I think, in my opinion. Because at the end of the day, the slaves did whatever they told them. If they told them, hey, we need to wipe out these people so we can start building our stuff, they did it. So I think they pushed from the east to the west, and they pushed it down to Mexico, and that's when they created that border. But a lot of us survived. We were scattered. The survivors, the children that were left, the women that were taken, they were the ones that survived and stayed in the United States because of, the breeding or whatever happened with them. But, yeah, bro, I think a lot of the tribes that are in Mexico, they were in the U.S., but like I said, they got funneled down to Mexico, and then they put that border up. And then that's when that separation happened with, like, the U.S. tribes that had the reservations and then the tribes in Mexico. There's that, we got separated, disconnected from one another. But yeah, because it's weird how there's reservations in the United States, but there's no reservations, like, in Mexico. That's confusing, like, what, how is that different? Why did that happen? But, the reservation thing, that's another story, dude. Like, I mean, You know, you hear stories about what happens in those what happened in those reservations. You know, we really don't know, right? But there's stories that came out that, you know, just a bunch of cruelty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, bro, I mean, it does hit our cultura because, you know, I feel we still suffer from those tragedies today in 2026. I think we still suffer from the repercussions, you know, what came after that. We still suffer from those things. But I mean, right now it's a lot of our people are going independent, but still, we still have to deal with you know, we still have to deal with a lot of things because of how there's so many different culturas in the Americas, you know? So that's never going to go away.
That's right. I'm about to pivot right now. We're going to talk about the natives right now. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's definitely a connection, man. Mexico and the United States. I mean, I feel a lot of the tribes were in the U.S., but like I said, they had to keep running. They ran from the east all the way to the west and then down to Mexico. I mean, you know, that's my hypothesis or theory, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you know, but yeah, man. But yeah, bro, I want to talk about that. And also, man, talking about this, like, I just want to share a quick story, like, with me.
Dale.
When I started getting into talking about the Native Americans and things like that, I noticed that I just started getting these feelings that I was being followed or stalked. And I think that they freaking put a camera in my house, dude, to be honest. Just because I was like speaking in support of Native American stuff. So we got to be careful with this, because when you speak about this, people that are not natives, they start following you. They start seeing what you're doing because they feel that we're a threat to their business, to their system. We're the only threat because of history. They say this is Native American land, so we're pretty much a threat to what they've built. So they follow tribes and see what they're doing, keeping tabs. And even people like me, just a solo civilian person, just because I put myself out there because of my, whatever you want to call it, pride, my cultura, I have a feeling that people follow me, like, from my jobs or something like that. Like, people started looking into what am I really about if I'm talking about that. Maybe they think I'm a part of some kind of association or So, you know, you got to be careful when we do this. Just always keep your stuff private. Always know how to use, especially with technology, know how to protect yourself. Because once you talk about native stuff, you know, there's ways that people just try to start following you and stuff like that, just because you talk about, you know, that kind of stuff, you know.
That's right.
So shout out to the people, you know, shout out to the people that, you know, if we talk about Native American stuff, just always know that there's people trying to watch us and seeing what we're doing. So,
orale, man. I appreciate the call,
be mindful, man. Always protect your homes, protect everything, because people will follow us, man.
Let's go ahead and talk about the natives. Yep.
All right, brother.
Ándale, cuídate. Thanks for the call. Bye. All right. So someone says Mexican is not a race. Well, if Mexican is not a race, then why do they call us La Raza? You know what I mean? We're La Raza. So if Mexican is not a race, why the hell do they call us La Raza? All right. Anyways, it's good to go ahead. Let's go ahead and pivot. That's right. Another day one just stepped in the comment section. What's up, Kimo Sabe? ¿Qué huele contigo, güey? Says, ¿qué huele, Mikey? Chicano 2, stay tuned in, homies. Support the raza, supporting each other regardless of what trials, tribulations that come about it. That's right. Let's go ahead and pivot, gente. All right. So again, there's a poll. You can go ahead and hit a 1 in the comment section, and it's going to add to the 1 in the poll. Or you can go ahead and hit a 2 in the comment section. You got to drop the number in the comment in order to get registered for this poll. I think that's how that works. So everyone that's already voted for the poll is saying, chale, this is not stolen land. So let's pivot over from Aztlán, gente, and let's go over to what I think the majority of people, when they say stolen land, actually refer to. And they're referring to the natives, the First Nations, the first Americans of this pinchy continent. Okay. Last night I was watching Wayward Son. He was live on TikTok. You guys, if you have TikTok, do me a favor. Go and follow Wayward Son 360. I would have loved to bring him on this episode right here, not only because he's knowledgeable, but because he has firsthand experience of the natives and their displacement in the United States history before the settlers came here, which, you know, the first ones were Britain or English settlers, etc. Right? I would have loved to bring him on just to go ahead and help me out with this one. But shout out to Wayward Son. I do want to do something with him in the future. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to go the last hour right now talking about what the majority of people mean when they talk about stolen land. The signs that are up, stolen land, stolen land. Is that the Mexico Southwest? My conclusion, but it's just my humble opinion, is not stolen. But now let's talk about the Native Americans, okay? So let's just go back in time, right? Now we got to go all the way back into the 15th century, I believe. It could have even been sooner than that. I don't know. Was I there? I don't know. All we know what's out there, right? What's in libraries, what's in books, and what we've been taught. So British settlers were the first ones to come. Right? English and British settlers. I don't know which one hit the soil first. When they came over to the soil, there are hundreds of tribes, right? In the United States, right? Hundreds of tribes. There was no borders at all. They found hundreds and hundreds of tribes, right? Well, they ended up settling all these British settlers east, right? East of, I can't remember the name of this river, but it was like the river that was on the border of Tennessee. And it just was that strip of land that ended up being the original 13 colonies, right? So there was a lot of tribes that were already living there, right? Now, remember this. Before they start bringing over their titles, their grant system, their land system, the natives that were here on the land, it was a totally foreign concept. That you tell a native that you own the land, they didn't understand that. They were ignorant of that fact. Matter of fact, I tend to believe that most natives, when European settlers came, thought that this sharing of land is something temporary, and in order to stay cordial, in order to stay friendly with the settlers, they were communing with them. They were talking with them, right? Some of them even took some of their cultural ideas, right? They took farming equipment, right? They took some of their clothing. It wasn't looked at as, oh, pues, you know, why are you doing that? It was what it was, right? But, and this is a but, in the 18th century, owning land turned into a frenzy. It was a frenzy. So what happened was the natives that were originally the first Americans did end up getting pushed out. They got pushed out of their lands little by little. There was battles because some of them were not having it. I forgot if it was the Choctaw or the Muskogee. I forgot which one, but in the Great Lakes, which were in Michigan, that was one of the first battles that took place between the natives and the settlers. Because this encroaching on land, the natives finally had enough. So one of the first battles that took place was in the Great Lakes. Another huge battle that took place between the natives. Again, they weren't having these Weddles occupying their territories. They just were like, what's this? It turned from friendly until they're all over the damn place, or I don't know what they thought. Another great battle was not just the Great Lakes, but it was down in the Florida region with the Seminole tribes. They weren't having it. then we're going to adapt, right? So, again, settlers bringing what people say is, some people call it evolution, right? Like, hey, we were going to get there regardless. I don't know. I mean, you can't change the way things evolved. You can't go back in time and change the way things happen, just like you can't change the Spanish from arriving. I mean, some people act like they want to go back to a time where all we had is pyramids and estamos cortando las cabezas de los pinches cabrones and throwing them down the stairs. Some people online make it seem like they want to go back to those times. I mean, it sounds good, right? A lot of us probably wouldn't survive that because you had to be, pues, a warrior, first of all, to lead your family. You're not going to be weak. You know, a lot of generations now are a lot softer, can't survive out in the wilderness, which we're going to talk about, you know, the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears right now. But a lot of people act online like it's the cool thing to do, right? Because you see a lot of AI pictures, Montezuma, que a la chingada, right? And this and this and this and that, you know. It's funny because in the Marine song, I forgot what the name of the Marine song, it says, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. That song, that bar in that song actually talks about, you know, the United States conquering. They went to the halls of Montezuma, which we were talking about when either General Scott went down there through the port of Veracruz, and they took the capital of Mexico, which led to the Treaty of Hidalgo, right? Guadalupe Hidalgo, and they seceded 50% of the land, right? And Tripoli was it's over there, right, in Europe, somewhere over there. Anyways, so the European settlers came. This is, again, we're talking about stolen land. We talked about Aztlán, the Southwest. I don't think people refer to that. I think they're referring to this, right? So what I'm going to say, it might ruffle your feathers, depending if you have some kind of preconceived lenses that you want to look through things at, whether you're on the native side or you're on the American evolution side. I'm just here to speak the pinchy facts, man. Yo no tengo pelos en la lengua. I don't have a horse in this race. I'm just going to give it over to the people. That way you guys can comment, and then you guys let me know what's going on. Salinas OG, I appreciate you, cabron. Yapa you, California Western Forces. That's right, cabron. And Damien Lepe. Gracias, man. Don't forget to drop a 1 in the comment section for this vote, a poll, or drop a 2 for this pinchy poll right here. You can't vote unless you hit a 1 in the comment or 2 in the comment. I think that's how this poll works. It's my first time doing a poll, so cálmense. I don't know, okay? But most people are hitting 2s, so this will show the result of the poll. This is what I think people are talking about stolen land. So the tribes, right? Anyways, all the tribes that were scattered were the first Americans. They were the first nations, okay, of the United States because they were here for thousands and thousands of years, right? Do you believe someone that was here thousands of years should keep their land? Do they have more rights than someone that came later on and conquered it? Because if that's the case, like in the Middle East, Israel and Iran, I mean, Israel and Palestine, that pinche guerra that's been going on forever. I mean, if that's the case, I hate to burst your bubble. If you're Christian, you know, this might ruffle your feathers. If I'm a Christian, it doesn't ruffle my feathers because the truth can never be considered disrespect. In the Middle East, to keep it a buck with you, Palestine has had more possession of the Holy Land than the Jewish people have had possession of the Holy Land. So if we're going to give it to whoever has been in the territory longer, wouldn't it make more sense to give the Holy Land to Palestine? Again, I'm just keeping it a buck with the people, man. Don't get mad at Mikey. Get mad at the truth, okay? So anyways, Andrew Jackson was the president, right? He's the one that's on the $20 bill, okay? The cabron that's on the $20 bill right now. He was a soldier, right, in the U.S. military. He was a soldier in the U.S. military, and he ended up being the president of the United States. I don't know if he did one term or he did 2 terms, right? In the year 1830, okay, 19th century, right? This is pre-Mexican-American War, Aztlan got lost forever, cabrones. We lost Aztlan, man. Got you. Pre-Mexican-American War in 1830, they passed a law that ended up displacing the majority or the most of native tribes. It's called the Indian Removal Act, okay? And so the Indian Removal Act basically passed into law because, again, totally different time. Founding fathers, of the United States, which I still consider. I'm just going to keep it a buck with you again because I keep it a buck with the gente. No tengo pelos en la pinche lengua, right? We're in the best country in the world, gente. Let's keep that a buck, okay? Some people get mad depending why. I don't know why you're going to get mad when I say that, but, you can catch a plane and fucking go anywhere you want. You know what I mean? It's a free country. Catch a plane and you can go anywhere. It was a different time, and back then, they weren't having the natives. They weren't having it. Again, didn't I say in the 18th century, a land frenzy came. People wanted to own land. So in 1830, this Andrew Jackson guy, right, who wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to his wife. He was a U.S. military soldier. He wrote a letter to his wife. In one of those battles between the natives, people don't talk about these battles, but they really happened, okay? They're not going to put that in U.S. history, right? And these battles, right? Andrew Jackson wrote a letter to his wife on the battlefield, and it said, that's right, man. Gracias for the super chat. Ramiro Santibáñez just stepped in the building. Rambo's Hot Dogs. Best pinche Chicali, Tijuana-style hot dogs in Greenfield, California. Do me a favor, gente. Go to Instagram and follow Rambo's Hot Dogs. If you're in the 831, you can't find hot dogs like this. Now, LA Los makes them. Last time I went to a UFC at the Staples Center, which was on Figueroa, I walked out and they were making hot dogs like Rambo right here, which is Rambo's Hot Dogs. But in the 831, you can't find them. Gente, do me a favor. Go and follow Rambo's Hot Dogs on Instagram. That's my day oneer right here. I don't know why the bell didn't ring and the thing didn't read the super chat. But anyways, I appreciate you, Ramiro Santibáñez. Okay, let's go back to it. This guy wrote a letter. This is President Andrew Jackson, right? He wrote a letter to his wife, and he said, I elegantly, these are his words, okay? I'm just speaking history. You can get your panties in a bunch all you want. But he wrote a letter from the battlefield, and he told his wife, I elegantly slaughtered 170 natives today. Got you. So again, you can feel the undertone of Americans, U.S. settlers back to Americans, right? They're Americans. They're not U.S. settlers no more because they've already been here for hundreds of years already, right? And since since they overthrew the British government, I'm going blank. Independence during the American independence, and they overthrew them. Now no one's talking like a Brit no more. It's already been hundreds of years. People got American accents. Now they look like frontiersmen. They look like Westerners. Pinche Wyatt Earp brochas, and the cowboy days came. And so, but again, the blood does, of course, it comes from Europe, right? Anyways, I digressed, cabrones. All right. So you could see the undertone, right? They're pushing out natives. Now the natives, it was their land, but they ended up doing hundreds of treaties with the natives, right? So they ended up pushing the natives in 1830. This cabron, Andrew Jackson, became the president. It's called the Indian Removal Act. And he ended up sending all of these tribes over to a small rectangular piece of property above Texas in the Midwest. And they wanted all of the natives just to go over here to this territory, which is modern day Oklahoma, right? The natives put up a battle. They fought several battles, but ultimately were not going to win, right? You got guns. When they have guns, when they have cannons, when they have bayonets, not just that, maybe it's the military generals también, you know, there's strategies of winning battles. It looked like most of them had to sell their land. You either sell it or you get conquered, and then you don't have nothing at all, period. So you can either this option or that option, right? That was it. Some people call it a strong arming. Other people call it manifest destiny. Only the strong survive, right? It is what it is. And you can go ahead and hit the look. Now we got 50% of the people saying, is this stolen land? See, this is what I think people are talking about. I think they're talking about the United States. So we're going to get to it, man. Episode 2, Brown Issues, you guys. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, subscribe over to the channel, you guys. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me. And let's break this thing down, man. They ended up going to Oklahoma. That's all they had. That's all they had. And this exodus, right? After these battles, the natives, again, they were on the land, but all of a sudden people started occupying the land. They're coming in wagons. You know, las mujeres are dressed like pilgrims, a la chingada. They would give the natives land. And when they would give the natives land, after they would give it to them, most of the time they would go back and take the land back. That's a fact. There was a story of the Muskogees. They gave them, again, the Oklahoma, that was not the first time they were moving them around. They were moving them around left and right. Wherever their territory was, you can only have a piece of it. This is your territory, you can have a piece of it. This is your territory, you can have a piece of it. And when they wrote a treaty to give them a piece of it, the Muskogees, I think this is around, the tribe was around Georgia, Alabama, they did the same thing. The United States did the same thing. They gave them a piece of land, the Muskogees. And then not the whole land, again, a piece of their land that they could all live. But to the Muskogees, when they gave them a piece of their land, guess what? All of a sudden, that piece of the land that they gave them was the most richest in cotton in all of the South, the richest in cotton. So when the United States would give them these pieces of land, once they found something valuable on the land, they would go and take it from them. That's a fact that actually happened. Again, you take it how you want to. I'm just here to speak the pinchy facts, right? So that happened several times. I'm talking about dozens and dozens and dozens. And then came the Indian Removal Act. Okay, now let's fast forward, right? So now they told them all, hey, here's your little rectangle piece of land. Again, these are all words, right? Eloquent words written on U.S. pieces of paper, right? We're for liberty. We're for people's freedom. We're for respecting our fellow man. We're for this, we're for that. Everything on paper sounds good. It sounds good. But when it turned into the United States interest to go ahead and take possession, again, this is just history. This is not politics. This is not bias. I'm just giving you the motherfucking facts, man. Okay, excuse my language. Then they would take the land. When the Exodus happened, about a third of the Cherokee tribes, a third of them, thousands and thousands of them, right? Some people say anywhere from 5 to 15,000, right? When this exodus happened, they had to go over 1,000 miles, travel to this land that the United States, after several years of war, several battles, they were just getting overtaken. They couldn't win. Now, I'm not saying they didn't win any battles. I actually think the Choctaw up in the Great Lakes area, they won 2 battles against the English settlers or British settlers. And on the third battle, I believe, if my memory serves me right, the third battle they lost. After all these years of battles, they had no option. You're going to sign this treaty, you're going to take this feria, and you're going to go where we tell you, right? We'll get to the reservations in a little bit. But anyways, on this road, about a third of the Cherokee Nation passed away. Matter of fact, you had some people writing in their memoirs, right? These are U.S. soldiers, right? They said, man, I've done seen people get shot, blown to pieces, ripped in half by cannonballs. And this is a fact. And these are eyewitness accounts. But the displacement of the natives of that day is the worst atrocity that I've ever seen. It was gacho, man. It was gacho. Thousands of lives died on this exodus over to, again, a small rectangular portion, which is modern day Oklahoma, because of starvation, famine, because of exposure. You're talking about in freezing tundra winters, okay? And also because they were attacked and unalived also on the way there. There's more eyewitness accounts that as they're going over to this land, again, the Indian Removal Act, finally, Andrew Jackson, the Cherokee had won a lawsuit. They won a lawsuit in the Supreme Court. Look this up. This is a fact. They finally got with the times and they said the only way we can approach this thing, they want to talk about land and grants and deeds and titles, we have to go to court. This is the Cherokee. And they won. They won a Supreme Court decision that says the land is theirs and belongs to the Cherokee, right? But anyone that knows any kind of U.S. government, those of us that remember U.S. government, or I don't know if it was called social studies back in the day, or it was called something, right? This is more like elementary school teaching. Maybe they taught it in middle school. I don't know. Middle school was about the time I turned into a pinche vago and stopped paying attention. But probably it was elementary school. If you know any kind of U.S. government, that's the judicial branch. And what's on top of the judicial branch? The executive branch. So if the Supreme Court does a decision, the executive branch has to enforce it if they want to, not has to. And they have to enforce it for it to be the law of the land. And Andrew Jackson said chale with the Cherokee winning that Supreme Court decision that the land that they had occupied for, I think, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years. I don't know. I don't know if they've been there hundreds of years. Some people said they maybe have been there thousands of years. La verdad no sé. So Andrew Jackson said chale in the Indian Removal Act, and they go. One of the chiefs, after seeing so many people pass away, not just that, they were walking down roads, and on the side of the roads, eran puros güeros. Puros güeros. And this is like in the frozen tundra winter, crazy climate temperatures, right? Estos pinches güeros were bien abrigados, right? They had 2 jackets, 3 jackets. They're nice and warm. They're sitting there watching these people walk by as they're freezing, as they're hungry, as they're starving to death. They're just sitting, watching on the side of the road, comfortable, occupying the land. That's just what it was. I'm not saying anything. I'm giving you the pinchy facts, right? And so one of the chiefs of one of the tribes said, he called it the Trail of Tears and Death. That was the original name for that mass exodus after the Indian Removal Act, Trail of Tears and Death. But it's been now condensed down to the Trail of Tears, where thousands, some say up to 15,000, lost their lives because of famine, starvation, exposure to the elements. And some of them even were unalived on the way there because the settlers that were there didn't want them walking through their territories. They couldn't walk through certain territories. I believe when they got, it was, I think it was an Ohio River, right? Estás abriendo la pinche cabeza. Maybe that's too tight. A la chingada. Some people said, I think I heard an account that said they had to cross the Ohio River in order to get to where they were going. And the Ohio River back then used to only cost 12 cents for the ferry. It was 12 cents, right? And they said when they saw all these people coming, they raised the price of the ferry trip from 12 cents to $1. Now, $1 back then would have been like a modern day $25. That's what it been, right? So this is 1800s. So we're talking about the 19th century. $1 back then would have been like a modern day $25. But there was even price gouging going on because, well, the natives weren't getting any kind of love. They looked at the natives 100% as less than. I'm just going to keep it a buck. They looked at the natives as inferior. They looked at them as less civilized. And that's why I believe they were just moving them around and doing what they did with them, right? So most of them go over to this territory in Oklahoma, but that didn't even last long también. That didn't even last long también, because then they ended up taking Oklahoma from them. The very last piece that they had, right? Before it was called Oklahoma, it was they named it Indian Territory. And so I think the name was Siskiyou. Siskiyou or Sequoia or something like that. That was actually the name of the territory when they gave it to them. But then that didn't last. And Oklahoma turned into the 46th state of the Union. That exodus, it was gacho, man. A lot of natives passed away during that exodus. Not just that, I don't know if you knew this also as well, but a lot of people didn't know this, but the natives also had slaves. I don't know if you knew this. It wasn't just the natives that were on that gira to get to the territory where they were removed to, but the natives also had slaves. And some people say the slaves, which were predominantly African, were also stolen. I mean, I'm just keeping it a buck. That's what some people are saying, right? They say they were also stolen. I don't know. I haven't even researched that. I'm telling you what some people have said, right? So countless centuries now later, and all the tribes that were originally here in North America we've gone to a society where it's the United States of America. But this is, I believe, what the majority of people, when they talk about stolen land, this is what I think they're referring to. We're on stolen land. So this is why they say no one is illegal on stolen land. I think this is what they're referring to. They're not talking about Aztlán, the Southwest, because I pretty much had laid those facts out on what took place for all those Southwest states to be lost to the United States. I think most people are talking about no one is illegal on stolen land, right? ICE is trending in the news a lot. ICE, which I think we're going to dedicate an entire episode to ICE. That's what we're going to do, okay? Because it's another hot button. It's another one where people, I went to Mexica New Year, and there was a clothing booth over there that said, Chinga la migra. You know what I mean? Hey. It looked cool, too. There was brown designs, and it said Chinga la migra and all that, But one of my uncles said, you think the migra's tough right now? You should have seen them in the 70s. They ain't got nothing on La Migra in the 70s. He said they were going in the Denny's, the Margie's diners, the gas stations. They were walking everywhere, the bars, the pool houses. They were going everywhere in the 70s. But again, it's a little bit gaslit right now. Immigration is very gaslit. So I'm going to do ICE. I think I'm just going to call it F-ICE, just to hit more emotional heartstrings on you cabrones. I'm going to call, maybe we'll do that the next episode. Let's do episode 3 of Brown Issues, F-ICE. Or I seen someone hold up a sign and it said, I like my horchata warm because F-ICE. I don't know. All right. So let's wrap this up, gente. It's going to be 10 o'clock. Me está dando un chingo de hambre. I do want to go through some of the comments right now. But let me give you my conclusion, and then we'll wrap it up in just the comments, and then we'll go from here, right? Is the United States stolen land? Well, I'm going to leave that up to you, but I will say this. If the land should belong to the people that were originally here, which were the natives, then it has definitely switched hands because it's not in their control anymore. They actually have been reduced now to live in reservations, right? Am I lying? They've been reduced now to live in reservations. And I really don't know how life on a reservation is. I really don't know if they want to go back in time. I mean, I would have to ask 100% native this question, right? I'm 52% native, right? But my 52% indigenous probably comes from tribes down in Mexico, not North American tribes, though all of them could have the same bloodline. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe U.S. natives, Mexico natives, and South American natives, it's the same pinchy continent. So maybe we all have the same bloodlines. And I understand that those are all labels on these geographic locations that were given to us, right? I want to say that because some people comment all the time, oh, Mikey, you got a colonized mentality. And, oh, Mikey, you're just colonized. Well, shit, man. I was born in 1981, not fucking 1881. I mean, what do you want to say about that? I'm trying to put modern day context on things. That's what I'm trying to do, gente. Modern day context, right? So was the land stolen? Was the land stolen? Well, indirectly, you can say absolutely the natives were pushed off the land because there were hundreds of treaties that were written, and then they reneged on those treaties and kept pushing them out, and pushing them out. Okay? That's one way to look at it, right? Another way to look at it is, you know what? Only the strong survive. The natives couldn't hold on to the land because they just couldn't for whatever reason. And we are where we are. And why go backward, right? That's another way to look at it. A third way to look at it is maybe the natives, I'm not saying they don't feel like they were wronged. Obviously, no one's going to glorify any of their past history where there's been family members displaced, unalived, or even worse than that. Even worse than that, ARD, SA'd. No one's going to glorify that. But I don't know if modern day natives are going to want to go back in time and change the clock back because they've assimilated over to modern times, which is 2026, and it's living in North America. I don't know. I would like to ask somebody that's a native, how is it living on reservations? Does anyone talk about these things? Is this not relevant anymore in 2026? Or is this something talked amongst the elders of today that there's a disdain maybe for settlers that just came and started occupying and all of a sudden threw their weight around and said, you know what, man, we need as much land as we can get. But then other people say that's called manifest destiny. That it was one way or another, God's plan, the United States was going to be what it was going to be. And other people will say, well, yeah, but Mike, there's been people in the name of God that have held up crosses. And to some people, well, I mean, we're talking about people that aren't alive anymore. We're talking about people hundreds and hundreds of years ago. They would see the Crusaders come, right? Like when they came, when the Roman Catholics came to the Holy Land after Muhammad had started his revolution and take over the Holy Land in the 7th century. And really, you know, that's where Palestinian history kind of started around that time of them being possessors of the land. Well, all of a sudden the Roman Catholics came and said, in the name of God, this holy land is ours. But what did they do in the name of God? They ended up slaughtering a bunch of people. So some people see that cross, again, no one that's alive now, and they looked at that like, shit, that's bad. Excuse my language. That's bad right there. You could say, you could use religion as a mask, is what I'm saying, and ultimately do the wrong thing, but you mask it and cloak it in religion. I don't know. I'll leave that up to the people to decide. Other people can say, well, U.S. settlers, United States, you know, they cloaked the stealing of the land with these nice, eloquent words of freedom, liberty, equality for all men. This treaty gives you rights and this and this and that. And then when the treaty is signed, they end up they renege and take the land that they gave them, which makes it all a charade. So those hundreds and hundreds of treaties never were upheld and reduced the natives to live on reservations. I'll let you guys decide that one. All right. Don't forget, hit a 1 in the comment. Drop a 1 in the comment if you're for yes. Drop a 2 in the comment if you're for no. And I'll go ahead and post the results up to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Let me go back and read some of the comments, man. Alpha Red said, not all natives had slaves. That's true. That's true. I'm not saying they all had slaves. There were slaves among them, and there were African slaves. But I don't know if that's not talked about a lot, or we're not supposed to mention that because it makes the raza look bad. Well, I mean, Mexico had banned slavery. I mean, before the United States. And that's why Abraham Lincoln, you know, he wasn't for a Republic of Texas, because when Texas eventually joined the Union and Texas was going to be another slave state, and Abraham Lincoln, you know, was the spearhead pioneer of abolishing slavery. But ultimately, before he did that, he had to win the Civil War, and it led to a pinchy Civil War having slaves. I'm not saying all natives had slaves. I mean, again, I wasn't there, right, cabrones? I wasn't born in 1771. I was born in 1981, all right? But not all natives had slaves. Muskogee, Creek, Seminoles were different. There were hundreds of slaves. The 5 civilized tribes had slaves. Yes, there was 5 civilized tribes. Those tribes were the ones that were, started adapting to the, I don't know if you want to call it American. At that time, it was probably already American culture, or they still considered it, I don't know, European culture or whatever, right? But now you started seeing natives wearing tantaras, pants, and not their native clothes. And, people started intermarrying. That means cultures started getting crossed. Not everything was a battle. Not everything was a slaughter. Not everything was hachas a la chingada and you're just sas. And, there was also a cultural appropriation and a cultural mix that was happening. I don't want to make it seem like the whole thing that happened to the natives was they never had peace, pleasantries, never had a good quality of life. We're just talking about their land that ultimately they were here for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, ended up switching hands in a not so polite, gentle way. I mean, I don't know how the fuck else you want to say it, because Mexico was established by white Spaniards. Yeah, you mean the name, I had heard that the Spaniards were the ones that gave them the name Aztecs, but other people in history say, "Oh no, Aztecs." The raza, the indigenous tribes called themselves Aztecs because they were from Aztlan. I don't believe that, because there's no record of any tribe going hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago saying with the word Aztec being said. So to me, it makes more sense that the Spanish gave the name Aztec, and that's kind of like something like Aztlan came about, in the 60s. That might be something that came later, but I don't think there was a tribe called the Aztecs. I actually think that's a Spanish word, but I could be wrong, man. I could be wrong. Before the Spanish came, that land was not called Mexico. That's exactly what I said, cabron. But there was a tribe. There was a tribe called the Mexica, which I believe the consensus of everyone is that's where the name came from, right? He says, a lot of ICE agents look Hispanic. Look, Damian Lepe, most of the people that live in San Diego that are Border Patrol, ICE agents, whatever you want to call it, right? The internet wants to get on fire. Pinche nopales. You know what? The next episode, we're going to talk about ICE. That's what we're going to do. The entire next episode is going to be about ICE. We're going to play videos. And I didn't play no videos right here because I had too much to say, and the videos would have just made it way longer. I could have played videos of stolen land, of the Mexican-American War, of Santa Ana, the Battle of San Jacinto, the Battle of San Fernando. I could have played all these videos, but it would have turned into a 4-hour live, and now I'm getting hungry, cabrones. I'm going to tap back in with the familia. But I think the next episode, I'm going to do strictly on ICE, and on that one, we are going to be playing videos, and let's dissect it. But I have family that are Border Patrol, because, again, the majority of the fucking raza down there have federal jobs, have government jobs. They like getting paid $100,000 or more with benefits, being able to have houses and have a great quality of life. And I might have a different opinion than you when it comes to ICE. Let's talk about it next week on that particular episode. But a lot of the raza are in the military, our police, our ICE, our Border Patrol, our FBI agents, our detectives. We'll talk about it next week, if they're sellouts or not. If maybe that's what some people think, oh, they're pinchy sellouts. Well, we'll talk about that next week, man. California Western Forces, that's a badass little avatar, cabron. Yes, most güeros only recognize that part of history. Most don't know about Aztlan or simply Yaqui, Raramuri, and other tribes in the Southwest. Over 200, damn, I still think there's probably some pure-blooded tribes, right? They're just, they're not going to be in civilized parts of a city. They're going to probably live in the mountains. They're going to live in rural areas. I'm sure there's still pure-blooded tribes out there. I'm sure there is, you know what I mean? They haven't assimilated. They don't give a crap about whatever other culture other than their culture. I'm sure there is, right? But it's far and few. They really messed up that Vanilla Ice song. Now I can't stand it. I think I'm already giving you the heads up. Next week, we're talking about ice. We're going to make the whole episode about ice, man. I think it's the only thing. It's only proper because we're just segueing it right now. My word is my bond is what it is. Or call it, they got bailed out land. Damn it. Yeah. Reservations are a look into America's future for us all. Damn. Damn it. What, are you saying we're all going to get put on reservations of some kind? I don't know. Hey, that's crazy, bro. Just think about it like this. I don't know. I don't know, but I will say this, man. Motherfuckers, excuse my language, man. I gotta watch it. I really am not trying to curse. I'm not trying to swear as much anymore, man. Dios perdóname. When you get your rights infringed nowadays, there's a pretty payday. There's a pretty payday. When there was this one was it a Venezuelan? Remember the Venezuelan guy that got arrested in Florida or Georgia? Remember the cops? Remember this is when 47 just stepped into office, and remember they played the video. There was a guy walking down the street, boom, and the cop car just went up on him. Hey, come here, and the guy started running. Remember, and they tackled him. Whatever. They ended up arresting him, right? And he said, "Oh, I'm fearing for my life. I'm fearing for my life." Well, he ended up winning his court case because the police officer had no probable cause. The body cam showed there was no probable cause. So this is what I said. Hey, if you get arrested and you get a good lawyer, you have documents, because it's trending on the internet. Oh, people are getting arrested and they're U.S. citizens. They're arresting everyone. And I'm like, look, if you get arrested and you have papers, all you got to do is get a good lawyer. You're going to get a fat check. You're going to get a pretty good payday. And I'm just keeping it a buck. So some people say they're going to come, take all our pistolas. They're going to wrangle us all up and all that. Hey, to each his own. I don't think that's going to happen just because, again, especially now with the advent of the internet and stuff like that, I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't. But that's just my opinion. Man. What does 52% Native mean? I did my ancestry DNA. And I didn't just settle for that. I actually go and search. I should post it in the community page. I did my ancestry DNA, but then I talked to a biologist reached out to me from Salinas. Shout out to science teacher, man. Shout out to him. That's my boy right there, science teacher. He told me, send me that and send me tu sangre. And I'm going to tell you what you are. Okay, because he says, don't trust the ancestry DNA. That's just some kind of commercial crap that really take that with a grain of salt who you are. But send me your ancestry DNA and send me tu sangre, and I'll let you know who you are. So he ended up, getting the ancestry DNA. The ancestry DNA, I forgot what percentages he gave me, but he gave me the real deal, Holyfield. This is coming from a biologist, and he said I'm 52% indigenous, 47% Spanish, and 1% was like a mixture. You know what I mean? A little bit of this and that. I forgot what he said. Okay. I forgot. It's just these. I don't even know what the hell the 1% was, but that's what I mean. So I had a biologist do it. Go back in my videos, and I think I did it last May. Just search DNA or science teacher on my YouTube channel. He says, bro, just say you're brown. Yeah, I'm brown. Trip out on this. Yappa, you, whatever. My bad. I actually had the brown berets on the channel, and I asked the brown berets. I had a brown beret from Chicago, a brown beret from Los Angeles. I had a brown beret panel. I absolutely respect all of them, and to the highest degree, right? Because they're still pushing the same line that was being pushed back in the 60s. I respect it, man. I respect it. I asked the brown berets, I said, hey, do we should we emphasize more our indigenous side or should we emphasize more our Spanish side? And one of the brown berets told me, oh, no, we don't emphasize the Spanish side because of what they did to our ancestors. And I just happen to disagree because I said, well, I'm not going to not be proud of the blood that's inside of me. But that's just me. That's just me. I'm going to embrace both of my bloodlines, right? I am. But that's just me. But I get what they were saying. Oh, you know what? They did that to I get that, man. I don't condone that. I get it, man. Just like the natives. We talked about the natives being displaced. Okay. I hadn't even mentioned, what about all the natives that got essayed, R'd, abused? None of that I mentioned. None of that I mentioned, which probably happened a lot. Okay. But anyways, if you have a Honda, is it still a Honda? Orale. They use biological warfare. Damn, that's crazy, man. Smallpox. Yeah, they couldn't adapt to all those things. I'm telling you, man. They couldn't fast enough. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one. That's right. We got the hater world. Mira. Mira who just stepped in the building. This is the most grinding pinchy content creator. I don't know another Chicano that grinds more than this cabron right over here. Do yourself a favor. Subscribe over to the hater world. Again, this possibly is the most hardest working Chicano on the net. Cemented, established. I send mine over to you, cabron. I send mine. All right, anyways. All right, you guys. Live on Chicano Tube. We're out. We're out. Let's go ahead and do episode 3 next week. I think we're just going to do the whole chingazo on ICE. Que Nopales, que they're sellouts. Que Paco, I'm bound by honor. He's a sellout. Que F-Ice. I like my horchata warm because F-Ice. Let's talk about it next week, man. Do me a favor, share this if you can. Hit that pinchy like button. If not, we're live on Facebook, on YouTube, we're live on Twitch, and we're live on Instagram. Gente, I'll see you next week. I'm out. Remember what I always say? Remember what I always say. In the end, all you got is the memories. I'll see you next week.